Hey, how's it going? Today we are going to play Gardevoir EX again. I figured it was kind of fitting to play Gardy around the 1K sub mark because Gardy probably brought like 3/4 of the subscribers to the channel. They were always the best performing videos. Yeah, seems like a good time to do a Gardy one, and I went to a cup this past weekend and was able to take it down with Henry Chao's Gardevoir list, and I think this exact 60 stays pretty good even with the new set. I know at the cup the only matchups that even felt remotely hard was Regidrago, and even that doesn't feel like it's as bad as some people think it is. I was able to take down a Terapagos Dusknoir in top 8, which is supposed to be a bad matchup for Gardy, but I don't know, it felt pretty solid to me. I beat a Drago in top 4. You know, Iono Screamtail is a really good combo, and I played against a Turbo Roaring Moon deck in the finals. That is just a really free matchup for Gardevoir, so I was able to win that as well. So the idea of Gardevoir is we have Gardevoir EX to accelerate energy into play. Its ability lets us accelerate as many energy from the discard pile to our Pokemon as we want. We just had to put 2 damage counters for each energy we attach it in this way, which actually ends up being a good thing because 2 of our attackers require damage counters on them to do more damage. Screamtail does 20 damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon, and Drifloon does 30 times the number of damage counters on this Pokemon. They both have low HP, but we have 3 Bravery Charm in here to raise the HP, and we can essentially one-shot anything with Drifloon, and with Screamtail we can pick off pretty much any support Pokemon on the bench. Another good thing about the Gardevoir deck is we get to play Kirlia. Kirlia has the Refinement ability, which is also the trade ability that has been printed many times in the past. It says discard a card from your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. Apparently they also made a change to this ability the other day. In the past you could always use the ability to discard a card with no cards in your deck, but now you are unable to use it if you have a 0-card deck. Having a draw engine like this is great. We also have Greninja and Fezandipiti for a little bit of extra support in case our opponent knocks out our Kirlias. We have Munkidori with the ability that says if we have a Dark Energy attached, we can move 3 damage counters from one of our Pokemon to one of our opponent's Pokemon. This fixes a lot of math and can also heal our Pokemon in clutch situations, and it's good against like decks like Regidrago, Dragapult, Lost Box, things like that. We also have Moonlit Hill that can heal, which definitely comes in clutch. The stadium says discard a Psychic from your hand, heal 30 damage from each of your Pokemon. Now this is very clutch. It can get extra Psychics in the discard, and it can stop this play that Dragapult and Drago will do where they put 2 damage counters on each of 3 Ralts so that they can, no matter what, knock out one of your Kirlia next turn, and then we can just heal all that damage. Combined with Munkidori, you can also make it so that we can attack with a Gardevoir with no damage on it, and 310 hit points can be pretty big. It can also allow us to retreat Pokemon more times than we would be able to. Since you can't knock Pokemon out with Gardevoir's ability, our opponent can like boss up a Kirlia that has maybe 60 damage on it, and then we can heal with Moonlit Hill and accelerate more energy to it. It can also put Drifloon and Screamtail's damage on odd numbers so that we can accelerate extra energy to them to do more damage. Our ace spec in this deck is going to be Secret Box. Secret Box says discard 3 cards from your hand and grab 1 of each trainer type. So we grab a supporter, an item, a tool, and a stadium. Now this may seem kind of counterintuitive because we only have 1 stadium in here, but it definitely can come in clutch. It can be costly to discard 3 cards, but it becomes an extra out to essentially every card in the deck, or basically every card in the deck, and it also saved me multiple times. I think there were 2 or 3 games where my hand was completely dead going first except for a Secret Box, so that was able to get me a supporter for next turn and a Poffin to get going. So Secret Box is definitely, I think people are realizing more and more just how good Secret Box is. Now I think that this list is probably pretty perfect. The only things that I would change about it is like meta dependent. Like I said, I kind of wish that the Spiritomb was a Manaphy, and I also miss miss Flutter Mane in the deck. I always enjoyed attacking with Flutter Mane and taking like multi-prize turns with Munkidori combined with Flutter Mane. But speaking of Munkidori, that's one other thing that I would want more of in here, but there are just no cuts and you can win against any deck with the list the way it is. So it probably just has to stay with, I don't know, Spiritomb maybe being the only card that I would switch. But yeah, that is the list. Let's check out the games. Also, shout out to this absolute legend. Thank you so much. And don't worry about the ad blocker. It's completely fine. This first game we are up against Miraidon, and we did start Klefki, which is always pretty clutch when that happens. I think I had that happen once or twice during me playing it the other day, which was probably pretty lucky. So my opponent is more than likely not very happy about this, and I do find that often people can get around it. Every once in a while it can brick our opponent, but typically what happens is, like you just saw, they Arven or whatever for Prime Catcher, or use the boss for turn or something like that, just to be able to use like Squawkabilly or whatever they want to do. My opponent Ultra Balls away their Blood Moon, gets Miraidon. This all makes sense. And really we're just kind of hoping that they don't get a turn 1 Iron Hands. And if they do get a turn 1 Iron Hands, we pretty much need to be able to respond with a Drifloon knockout, or at least hitting into them with Guard EX and Ionoing them and hoping that they can't boss, because if they can take 4 prizes with 1 Iron Hands, it's a pretty rough game. The only way that like we can win if they do that is if the Iron Hands is like the only thing they have set up. If they have no backup Pokemon, then you can like knock out the Iron Hands with Gardevoir EX's attack combined with Munkidori's ability over 2 turns, and while also like sticking something in the active. It can be kind of weird, but my opponent here is playing another Nest Ball. They're getting Greninja, that makes sense. Now they already used their supporter for turn, so they have to raw draw into either Electric Generator or the double turbo, and they also need to hit 2 off of it to get the Iron Hands, and they attach it to the Raikou, so that is a pretty good sign. Now they're going to knock out one of the Ralts, which, you know, you never like to see, but it is better than having them take 2 prizes with Iron Hands. Now I already have Candy Guardian in this hand, which is kind of crazy, but I do like all of these cards. I guess I could Ultra away Arven and Bravery Charm, get either Kirlia or Gardevoir. So the reason that I would get Kirlia is just because there are no energy in the discard pile, so getting a Guard EX would be almost kind of pointless. But yeah, so I grab Kirlia and counter catcher up the Iron Hands, and now either if I get into a Candy Guardy, would definitely be happy to use that, but I also could either TM Evo or hit into this Iron Hands for 10. Now hitting the Iron Hands for 10 would not be bad, because that would make the Munkidori Guard EX math work really well, but don't end up doing that. I decided to just TM Evo. I did at the time know that I had prized 2 Kirlia, but I didn't want to evolve up into an EX because I wanted to be able to use 2 trades next turn. Like if I evolved 1 into an EX and then they boss knocked out one of my other lone Kirlia, that would have been pretty unfortunate. So we are kind of hoping to buy a turn here, but it does not look like that's what's going to happen. It would be nice though if my opponent had to burn a switch card, and they do. If they played a future capsule and were able to keep their second switch card, that would be kind of unfortunate. I guess there's also a chance they play Latias. So with that in mind, I'm going to try and not open up a bench slot for them. Like I'm going to try to take 6 prizes in 1 turn, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but it is very possible with this deck. Now I Super Rod in the Dark Energy because I'm going to need that if I'm going to take 6 prizes in one turn. And Iono into, well, a pretty perfect hand. I can grab the Dark, and I also get Greninja, and all I need to get into now is an Ultra Ball or just the Guard EX, and I do end up drawing Ultra Ball, but I'm going to trade first to see if I can get around, you know, not using the Ultra Ball. I do end up making a mistake here. I should be trading away the Psychic Energy, but I don't, because, you know, I'm kind of an idiot, and then I look at my discard and go, oh no, I only have 2 Psychics, and I need 3. Because I was planning to attach a Psychic from hand to Guardy so that I would only have 10 damage left on it after I attack, but I need to attach the Dark to Munkidori. So, you know, thankfully we didn't do that. That would have been pretty dumb. And now I'm just debating right now if I want to go the route of counter catching up in Iron Hands and hitting into it. And I do decide to do that, because they are down 2 Switch Cart and a Prime Catcher, and last turn they did not grab a Future Booster Capsule with their Arven, and I do believe that if they had access to one, they would have grabbed the Future Capsule and a Generator to try and get more energy in play, but they didn't. They grabbed Rescue Board and Switch Cart, so the only threat is maybe on the off chance that they play a Penny, but I don't think they play that, so I guess this up to try and set up a big turn. What I'm thinking is, in an ideal world, I could Scream Tail next turn the Raikou and put like at least 180 damage on it, and then in 2 turns I can use Munkidori twice with Turo and Super Rod and boss up the Squawkabilly and knock that out with Gardevoir, or I can hit into the Squawkabilly with Scream Tail and do the same play but boss up something else to knock out with Drifloon. So that's kind of my plan right now. Them bossing up Greninja is going to make it quite a bit harder. Here I'm debating what to trade away. I decide to get rid of the Fez. I would like to keep that around just on the off chance that I need it, but I kind of want all these other cards more, because I need the Psychic to retreat, of course, and the Nest Ball to get the Scream Tail. I don't know. I probably didn't need the Guard EX either, but I kept that around. I want the Bravery Charm for either Scream Tail or Drifloon, and I want the Poffin to have the option to get Drifloon if I end up like needing that next turn or something, and, you know, Moonlit Hill so that I can bump their stadium. Now what I can do is hit the Squawkabilly for 120 and also move the rest of the damage off my Guard EX to the Squawk this turn. Hopefully that's what I do, yeah. So that I can do that and then hit it for 120. And then next turn I would probably like snipe the Raikou for 120 to set up the 6 prize turn on the turn after that. But I do think my opponent ends up conceding. Now we are up against Dragapult and got pretty lucky with this start. Again, that's 2 games in a row with a very lucky starter. Spiritomb is probably the perfect starter in this matchup. They're not going to be able to draw with Rotom or use Lumineon next turn or anything, but our hand is not the greatest that it could be. Luckily that we're not going first, or it would basically be a brick, but we will just have to Vessel away a Psychic and then research away these Kirlias. Kind of sucks, but can use what's it called, Super Rod to get back the Kirlias whenever we draw into it. I'm just kind of looking through the deck now. The other 2 Kirlia are in there, but all 3 Ralts are, or 3 of the 4 Ralts are prized, so, you know, you get lucky in one way and unlucky in the other. Like last game I got lucky to start Klefki, but prize 2 Kirlia. This game I get lucky to start Spiritomb and prize 3 Ralts. So I think it does kind of even out. We get into Heavy Ball. That is kind of nice. I can't use the attack of Spiritomb because it does force you to put it back into the hand, so I don't want to do that. I want to keep it in play in case, you know, they have Lumineon or their hand's not the best and they want to draw with Rotom. Now, the hand is almost perfect for next turn. If that Arven was a research, it would be pretty ideal, but I do think we are pretty close to being able to one-shot a Dragapult. If I was going to say if they evolve it, but they do evolve, and they're going to attack, and I imagine that they're going to split the damage 30 and 30, and they're going to be sadly disappointed when they find out that I have Moonlit Hill and Psychic. I'm pretty sure I do end up playing it and using it. I don't think that there is any reason to hold on to the stadium in this matchup. In some matchups, you might want to keep the the stadium to bump your opponent's stadium, but hopefully, yeah, I'm going to throw it in play and activate it right now. This turn does, or this action does end up taking me a little longer than it should, because if I had one more energy, I'd be able to just Arven for like Poffin and Bravery Charm and accelerate energy to the Drifloon and use the Moonlit Hill to put it on odd numbers and then re-accelerate 2 more energy onto it to get it to 110 hit points. But since I cannot do that, I was 1 energy short. I have to research, and I needed to get into Munkidori and Dark Energy, and I do end up getting into everything for that except for the Bravery Charm. So I'm debating here getting Drifloon and Klefki just to thin the deck out a little bit, but I decide not to do that. And yeah, Vessel, and I should Super Rod here. I make a mistake. I should have Super Rod the Fezandipiti back in, but I did things out of order, so now I have to grab a Kirlia, and I have to hit exactly Munkidori and Bravery Charm or Fezandipiti, and then I could draw more cards. And I use the Kirlia and hit Munkidori and Bravery Charm, which is kind of insane. The deck is kind of thin, so like, yeah, it's not like the worst odds in the world, but that was extremely lucky. Like, I don't know. So we are going to be able to one-shot this Dragapult. My opponent is not going to be very happy about that. I'm sure they have a 1-card hand. I don't even like see any possible combination of cards they could get to make a comeback. Like, they could Thornton and then knock out my Drifloon and put some damage on the Kirlia or something, but then I'll just be able to draw some more cards, probably get back into another Drifloon, but if not, heal some of the damage with Munkidori and maybe knock out their Fezandipiti with my Gardevoir EX. I don't know. I just don't think that there's almost anything that they can do at this point. I totally forgot about this, but my opponent basically waited the timer out and then played a Nest Ball and waits the timer out for the rest of the thing until they eventually get kicked for an activity or whatever. So yeah, I'm just gonna talk about the deck. I think I don't know, Gardy this past weekend felt pretty unstoppable. I think it still feels pretty solid in this Surging Sparks meta. I won basically every game that I played with it. The one game that I did lose was because I was playing against a Turbo Moon deck on the ladder, and I thought it was an Ancient Box deck, and they had a Mew EX on the bench, and I could have knocked it out, but instead I knocked out their Baby Moon because I figured they had a really low hand size, and I was just kind of thinking, oh, if I knock this out, they might not be able to attack, and I didn't expect them to put 2 more 2-prize Pokemon in play. If I knew what I was up against, I would have just knocked out the Mew EX and pretty easily won the game, but they did ended up beating me on that, or in that one. But overall, I think the deck is as good as ever. This Secret Box version feels insane. I don't know, that seems like I got kind of lucky in those games, but it feels like it draws like that almost all the time. And then you watch anyone playing the deck on streams at any of the major events, and it seems like they draw like that too. So I think Gardevoir is here to stay for until at least Kirlia is gone. Then when Kirlia is gone, we're gonna have to rethink the way the deck is built, but that's not for a while. and until then, Guardy is going to be a top contender in the meta. It's going to be one of my favorite decks to play at events. I have always had pretty decent success with Guardy, so I'm going to keep playing it. It's just one of those decks that feels like every game is winnable and that I only lose when I make a mistake, so I always like decks like that. But yeah, like or dislike, comment, and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.